is my strength and song, and he is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation. My Father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name, and Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them, they sank into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand is thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Is thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy, and the greatness of thine.
Well, good evening, and welcome to episode 3 of my video cast on August 11th, 2026. After Christ, our dear Lord, Savior. This is Exodus 1. We'll be covering Moses' birthplace and Egyptian landscape, and going over the details that make up the essence of Exodus 1. Temperature of my birthplace is currently 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's hot. There is severe heat and a heat advisory. Right now, everybody's drinking a lot of water to stay cool, and of course, the Egyptians are working us very hard. Let us move on. Well, when we last left off, we covered which of the two pharaohs, in theory, were reigning over my birth. Which pharaoh was it when Moses was born? I concluded that it's Pharaoh Seti I. Ramses too. But of course, I'd like you and encourage you to do your own reading and come to your own conclusions. Now, we also wanted to go over, discuss going over um, what the landscape looked like. So we were last looking at uh, Google Earth. So let's just take a quick look at that again. So here it is right here. As you can see, this is one of the branches that we discussed during the last episode. Right here. This is where the Pharaoh's palace was situated. Basically, as you'll see, it was an island at that time before everything was covered over. So this branch here was located in another area. It could have been, my guess is here by S. Samana, because what happens is the water over time, if you can see this branch here, how it is convex, meaning it bulges up. The water will keep shifting, so, and it'll keep going up over hundreds of years and filling the silt will fill in where it was. So the new location of the branch of water, waterway, or whatever you call it, part of the Nile Delta, what have you, will be at a new location. So it's possible too. Another alternative view is that this right here, this waterway right here, could have also been the waterway that's here right now, where they have located High Ramesses. The city was covered and rebuilt over, so they located it. This is the ancient city right here. That's basically in the discussed in the mentioned in the Bible. I should say discussed. It was mentioned under a different name. Ramesses is the name of a lot of pharaohs. That means like real estate, son, real estate, pagan, but pagan, but real estate, things like that. So it's possible that this waterway was behind, but that this one could have been the one that was here also, and it shifted over. So we don't really know. They're exploring now. They have geologists there, agriculturalists, all these ists professions going over it, scouring the area. Everybody wants to get to the bottom of all the history. So, as you can imagine, everybody is interested. They want to know uh, about Israelites, us, our people, our ancestors. I want to know about the Egyptians too. Right now. So, so All right, let me just show you a quick thing here. So
For more than 5,000 years, a single river has kept a civilization alive. The Nile didn't just water crops. It built empires, fed dynasties, and turned desert into abundance. Always been fragile. It exists because, for millennia, the river flooded every year, depositing nutrient-rich silt across the land. But modern Egypt changed that system. When the Aswan High Dam was completed in 1970, it transformed Egypt's economy and energy supply. But it also stopped the annual floods. That meant less natural fertilization, more reliance on chemical fertilizers, and critically, no new sediment reaching the delta. As a result, the delta is now eroding into the Mediterranean, sinking due to groundwater extraction, becoming saltier as seawater intrudes inland. This pattern isn't new, and ancient Egyptians had to carefully manage their water supply. But today, the scale is unprecedented. Egypt now has over 110 million people, and roughly 95% of them live on just 5% of the land, almost all of it hugging the Nile.
why did I show you that? Because it all ties in together. Plus, it just gives you a flavor of the agriculture. The Nile River was very important in positioning the Israelites throughout uh, the year for enslavement tasks, whether it was dry season, wet season, uh, or building to get ready for after they experience the agricultural peak growth and picking of the crops. Basically, they have to put it somewhere, or even at times they would the pharaoh would have building and creating military weapons and such. Uh, so that was relevant in that regard. And then let me just give you a 3D view. This is all tying in. So we're gonna go over Goshen. So just show you where that is right now too. Just bear with me 1 second. Oh yeah. Okay. So um yeah. So here is Goshen right here. Okay. And you're looking at what Pi Delta was. This is this ballpark right here. Okay. Sinai. You have the Sinai Peninsula there. And off down here up to the top right. Over to the right. Way over to the right. Red Sea. But his so you got Pi Ramesses. See that right there? It's called Ramesses, but Pi Ramesses. That's what we were just looking at. The city that was buried. That's where Moses, his birthplace, or where they raised him, uh, presumably was or is. And you can see right here in this little branch of waterway. And this was ideal for the pharaoh at the time because he had essentially his whole entire naval fleet right here. You know, on his as you'll see, I'll show you. He built basically an island with a moat and naval yard, whatever you want to call it. You see it, that will lead out into the Mediterranean Sea, effectively using this waterway. Anyway, this is the Goshen area. Okay. All right. Back to the chalkboard here. All right. So, when was Moses born? Well, because there are no surviving uh, Egyptian civilian or military or even royal records that mention him, uh, even biblical, it doesn't talk about one, unfortunately. Uh, I know God knows, right? God knows, and that's all that matters. The exact birth year of Moses cannot be definitively proven. Instead, historians and theologians estimate his birth year based on different interpretations of biblical timelines and Egyptian history. So here's an estimate right here. I think we covered this the last time, but it's kind of like where we ended off, so a little fresher. So the classical Jew tradition, modern, talking about like the the Jews that came from Israelites, you could say, the modern Jews that came from these Jews, the rabbis, the date. According to their chronology, Moses was born on the seventh day of the Hebrew month in the year 2368, which translates from creation, which translates to 1393 BC, before Christ. Now, the lifespan, the tradition states that he lived exactly 120 years. Obviously, that's in the Bible, so that's a fact. Passing away on his birthday in 1273 BC. Um, the late majority historical theory, what the majority believes it to be. We're talking professions here of archaeologists, theologians, um, theologians, uh, all the professional disciplines that would, um, all the brain power that would work on trying to figure this out. So, modern biblical archaeologists and historians who treat the Exodus text as having a historical core estimate his birth to be around the 14th century BC, roughly between 1340 and 1300 BC. Why? Because it aligns with the archaeological evidence of the construction of the Egyptian supply cities mentioned in the Bible, Pithom and Pi-Ramesses. And this is the one I lean on. So, and you can go look this up yourself and come up to your own conclusions again, or not. He existed. That's what matters. He did what he did, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Conservative religious scholars who use a strict literal calculation of timelines found in the Bible have to basically. such as counting backwards from the building of Solomon's temple in 1 Kings 6:1 places birth around 1526. The other one places birth around here. This one's between 1340, so let's call it 1320. This one's between 1526, so that's basically 2 centuries further out from the birth of Christ, basically. So the reasoning why is this framework assumes the Exodus happened around 1446. So since the Bible states Moses was 80 years old when he confronted the Pharaoh, working backward places his birth in the early 16th century during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose I. So I originally kind of thought this one was okay, but it's it's the pharaohs here, cities that I mentioned, so that's why I go with option number 2 here. Again, so that was when he was born. So no one knows, okay, except God, and you know, and obviously Jesus. So where was he born? So we talked about this a little bit too the last time, I believe. So this is the land of Goshen right here, and this is the Nile River. So see right here, this is where he's presumed to have been born, just like right over here. So here's another theory. This is the second theory. So hold on. So where was he born, right? So we did when was he born? Now where was he born? So High Ramesses. Right. I did 2 of the 4 theories. The other 2 I didn't care for. You can look them up yourself if you want. Yeah, if you do that, will take forever. So this is the theory right here. I had one. I threw it away. I didn't care to want to show it. High Ramesses, the Ramesside late date theory. So Moses was born in the 14th century under Pharaoh Seti I or Ramesses II, which is his other alias. The High Ramesses, that's that city, right? It's modern Cantir. It was built directly next to the ruins of old Avaris. This is the most popular historical theory. It's heavily featured in mainstream media. That's not why I like it. It relies on Exodus 1:11, which explicitly states that the Hebrew slaves built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh, because the Israelites were already living and working there. It is highly probable Moses was born in or just outside this capital city. He floated in a basket, so also so that's where they think he may have been picked up by the princess. But it's definitely highly probable. So let's go to Exodus 1:11. A minute here. Oh, this is the Geneva Bible, 1599. You go to Therefore, Exodus 1:11, did they set tasks them over them to keep them under with burdens, and they built the cities Pithom and Ramesses for the treasures of Pharaoh. Same thing in the William Tyndale Bible, 1:11, right there. And he set taskmasters over them to keep. By the way, this one was written by. This is the Puritans Bible. That's the one that basically came into the United States. It was the baseline for construct of all the documents in the United States. And they built unto Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. So, let's go to east order. So Exodus 1:11 and King James. And therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. Alright, back. And so it relies on 1:11, Exodus 1:11, and as the store cities because the Israelites were already living there and working. So that's why it's highly probable that he was born there. There's a map showing Pi Ramesses. And possible sources of metal. So the Egyptians, this is what the Israelites mined for the Egyptians. Just out of curiosity, if you're interested. Papyri is the most part located underneath the modern. Like when they say underneath when it's located underneath the modern city of Cantir, they mean literally under it. It was buried. So I mean, after like Egypt basically was conquered, by like Muslims, whoever, they pillaged. They stole all the stones, all the pillars, everything that they could have. Sometimes they relocated these things. Even Egypt relocated parts, a lot of their buildings, because the Nile River and its branches were moving so much, or the flood, became too deep, and it was flooding the area. And there was nothing the Egyptians could do about it. So they had, except for relocating entire cities or king's palaces, or the pharaoh's palaces, I should say, to other parts of Egypt. So this is why it's difficult to find a lot of things. One of the reasons. King Tier, so there you go right there. King Tier, so Pi Ramesses is underneath this. And then Goshen's right here. All the copper mines, these are the things they use to make weapons for their armies. Copper, granite. By the way, they invented batteries back then, and they used them to, for metallurgy, things like that. Lead, copper. They had cobalt you need to develop a chemical process to refine a lot of these things, just like uh, rare earth minerals is done today. This was the more archaic form of processing rare earth minerals. So Memphis, the theory that he was born in Memphis, which is right here, was born near the traditional administrative heart of Lower Egypt. Memphis, located just south of the Nile Delta apex near Cairo. Apex is Cairo's right here. The evidence: while the pharaohs frequented the Delta, Memphis remained the primary administrative capital of ancient Egypt during much of the New Kingdom era. Historians who suggest Moses was born here note that its proximity to the Nile's branching points aligns well with the narrative of a basket floating down a heavily populated stretch of the river near the royal family's residential quarters. Well, like we talked about before, the royal quarters were in pyramids underneath Qatar. I mean, having it up here makes no sense. And the basket can still float here. These were large branches. And the Nile River is massive, as you've seen from the round earthers from the International Space Station. I know the flat earthers by that. Okay. By the way, we might talk about it. This was thought of to be the other Goshen right here that was given to Joseph, rather. That right there is a very, very rich, fertile area. That's part of the Nile River, not just here that they think it's Goshen, but this right here is like an incredibly rich, fertile, perfect piece of property right here in Lower Egypt. Um, and this is coming from newly emerging information. Another thing is it's because of the pharaohs' tombs in the area and things like that. So they are also finding a lot of tools that potentially look like belong to the Israelites, used for like building, um, making clay, straw bricks, all kinds of things in this area here. So yep, on the map. So in Exodus 9, 25 to 26, throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both men and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields, stripped every tree. 26. The only place it did not hail was the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were. A few major cities are identified with the region of Goshen, notably Pithom and Ramesses, especially in regards to the slave labor of the Israelites in generations following Joseph. These store cities were likely built and expanded due to the memory of Joseph's earlier actions in storing provisions in the face of famine. Clearly, the descendants of Jacob themselves were spread throughout the entire region as they were multiplied greatly during this time. In Genesis 47:27, now the Israelites settled in Egypt, in the region of Goshen. They acquired property there and were fruitful and increased greatly in number. In Exodus 1:8-14, then a new king, who did not know about Joseph, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we will join our enemies. If war breaks out, they will join our enemies, rather, fight against us and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. This is after Joseph received Goshen. And they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. So Joseph got Pithom. They really, I mean, it's highly probable that he received this area here. They said it's very fertile, and it's just an incredible place to uh, grow grow things and have farms, raise families. So, actually, let's go to Google Earth and take a look at it. So, bam. Okay, hold on. The Fayum Oasis. Also, look at that. See that? Look at what Google wrote. Somebody told us. Somebody wrote this. Bam. Guess this is where it is. Right? Remember, Fayum is right there, right? Now, so they wrote it's an oasis. It's the capital. It's a modern city, but it's one of the oldest cities due to its strategic location. So you can see from the picture here that it's close to the Nile. So my gut tells me that this was where Joseph settled down. This is the land the Pharaoh gave him. So look, it's bang, right? But look at watch. When I zoom out, take a look. At first you're like, oh, it just looks like a regular city, right? It's all brown. Oh, look at it. Look. Oh, by the way, yeah. Look at the fresh water, a body of fresh water. This lake right up here too, Quran Lake. This thing's massive, and plenty of fish are in this lake. Freshwater fish too. And you have this right here, the source of water. I mean, look at that. So watch. I'm gonna zoom out some more. I mean, look at that. That's a massive piece of property right there. Wouldn't you say? The other thing is that it's not subject to the ebb and flows of the Nile River coming from the Mediterranean. See, the flooding. You know, yeah. Well, you get low tide in the Nile River here and there. Yeah, I guess you can. During dry season, but it doesn't matter because look at this right here. They have this abundant source of water. This body of water here. You just look around. Look at this. This green agriculture that's here currently. That's why potentially this looks like the ocean. So, all right, enough of that. Let's see here. Let's come back to our game. Okay, so all right, Genesis 47:27. Yep, and Exodus 1:8-14. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power. Look, he said to his people, oh, read that, right? No, we didn't. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for the Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with hard labor, working with brick and mortar, and with all kinds of work in the fields. And all their hard labor, the Egyptians used them ruthlessly. They also built weapons of war, all kinds of things, administrative buildings, anything you could possibly think of. Egyptians just worked them to the bone. Also didn't educate them either. It is this reference to the city of Ramesses that has led, we're right here, Ramesses. It is this reference to the city of Ramesses that has led people to speculate that Pharaoh Ramesses II, alternatively known as Ramesses II, was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. That was Seti's one. Pharaoh Ramesses I was ruled out because he had an extremely short 2-year reign. So he was only in there for 2 years. And that was about 20 years ago, before Ramesses II. So a church historian, Caesar Rhea, kind of a fancy name, who was quite accurate on many things, but didn't want to speculate, But he was the first to speculate that Ramesses II was the pharaoh of the Exodus. But he was wrong a lot. Far too much on biblical and historical evidence points to a much earlier date than the Exodus. So, like for example, the timeline given by scriptures wouldn't work. That was given in 1 Kings 6:1. That's the theory that I didn't go for, that we discussed earlier. There would have been insufficient time for the period of judges. Pharaoh Merneptah, son of Ramesses II, claims Israel to already be an established nation, something that's unlikely if they had just gotten to the promised land, which is true. So in reality, two primary possibilities exist for these references to Ramesses in the text. God caused the text to be updated with a later name, one that would be more familiar to the people of the centuries which followed and read it, or listened by mouth when the scriptures were retold verbatim, mouth to mouth. Places of names frequently changed in Egypt and the whole Middle East, for that matter. Some stuck, many didn't. These cases of Ramesses being used as a place name much earlier one in Genesis 47:1. See the next point. Are examples of updating names, along with that of Dan, which was originally called Leshem and Laish. Contrast Joshua 19:47 and Joshua 18:27-30 to the earlier reference at Genesis 14:14. We're not going to go there. It's going to in the interest of time for this video cast. Ramesses was a more general regional title, subsequently applied to the city and later still to these pharaohs. It is notably that scriptures refer to the land of Goshen as the district of Ramesses, hundreds of years before any pharaoh Ramesses had ruled. In Genesis 47:11, so Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramesses. Well, I just want to make mention that what we talked about earlier was the second location, Goshen, potential site. That could be considered a district of Ramesses at the time. As Pharaoh directed, it is likely that, getting back to the reading, it is likely that Ramesses was a regional name. So if Ramesses is that big, possible that where I showed you, where Bayamas, the old ancient oasis city near the big lake, was in fact the land that it received, settled in. Even at this much earlier period, because Ramesses is a title simply meaning begotten or born of the sun god Ra. So Ra was their sun god. That was the name of their sun god. They have their god, we have ours. And by the way, ours, his name is Yahweh. And everybody says God, but his name is Yahweh. Or the sun god Ra. This could be applied to either places in that pagan. Egyptians were pagan. This could be applied to either places or people, as it was with the pharaohs later on. In this view, the region is first called the district of Ramesses. Then a store city is named after that district. And finally, the pharaohs who were from this region, like Ramesses I, thought to have been born near Avaris. They were called by the same name. So they all want to be begotten from Ra, the sun god. So, how were the Israelite slaves treated? Well, during Israel's enslavement in Goshen, their primary occupation centered on building projects that were commissioned by the Pharaoh and his administration. The administration back then was really small. While the strong may have been used for the actual building, the young and weak could be utilized for making bricks. A lot of the bricks that were made with straw are found a lot in the area of Goshen. They're also found in the area that I am suggesting was Goshen too. That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and foremen in charge of the people. You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy, and that is why they are crying out. Let us go and sacrifice to our God, their God being Ra, the sun god. Make the work harder for the men so that they keep working and pay no attention to lies. And so Egyptians, they did work. It wasn't just royalty. They had a lot of people that worked. They had to put a lot of people to work. They sold their agriculture. Most of it was taxed, you know, but they did have to do things too. And they harvested straw and they sold it, and most of a good portion was taxed and given to the pharaoh, the royalty, but it had delivery system and everything, bringing straw. So now the pharaoh's saying they have to go out and get straw on their own. So that means they have to toil for it. Well, if you don't put the correct amount of straw into a brick, the brick's just gonna fall apart faster. This subjugating quality to their harsh methods. Those are bricks that they found at some sites also. Some more bricks, pictures of bricks. So determining the exact locations of sites in Goshen is difficult. The Delta region, which is where the Nile connects to the Mediterranean Sea, that area where it fans out, is too moist to preserve papyrus documents. So leaving only monuments and stone engravings, and a lot of the stone and pillars and monuments were taken also and relocated or stolen by conquering regions or countries and taken to their own palaces. So things were just scattered all over the place, which makes it more difficult to historically pinpoint the accurate, visually see everything. People want to confirm things. We know the Bible's true, but people want to confirm. Also, to see this some want to see it out of interest. So, I myself, I like to see it out of interest because this is our heritage. These are our ancestors. So, don't we all like to see what our ancestors did? Don't you want to see Don't you want to see our heritage? Even mud brick structures deteriorate a lot. So here's the Mediterranean. Here's a little picture here. So here's a proposed Exodus route. So we're getting underway into Exodus here because we're leading up to it. Because the Egyptians, they cranked up the heat now on the Israelites. They're getting angry at us, because we're getting larger, as we discussed earlier. Our population is getting larger. They're afraid that we're going to side with our enemies and take over, or leave Egypt, and ergo they lose their labor force, their servants, and in the builders, the productive force really. So here's the proposed Exodus route. One going from this way from Pi-Ramesses, city of Pi-Ramesses again, right here. So don't get this confused with Goshen, or my proposed, based on scholars findings, alternate Goshen. So not the original Goshen or the alternate Goshen. This is can't see built. This is the Ramesses, Pi-Ramesses, the city that's built underneath Cantier. Okay, so this is where this presupposes that Moses was born. So this is the route of Exodus. Right here, going this way, and the other alternate route going that way. That's forward, sorry. This is the proposed route of Exodus. Sorry. And this is the proposed route of way of Horus. That's the proposed route of Exodus right here. Okay. So now, following the last plague, the death. This is a summary. Following the last plague, death of all firstborn. It is probable that Pharaoh was staying at Pi-Ramesses when he summoned Moses and Aaron, who were likely at nearby Avaris. Let's find out where that is, okay? Because it's been brought up. I brought that up a couple times already. So we're going to go to Google Earth for another moment. Okay, so when Pharaoh summoned Moses, Aaron, the Bible says Moses was here. Virus. That's the Hyksos capital, by the way. Those are renderings of artist renderings of ancient Hyksos. Okay. So we're talking right here. So so I can see the pin on it. So you can see the distance. Not too far away. And if you're looking at a plot of land right there, another plot of land, you can see it's not too far away from that district. So he summoned them. So the Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. As Moses and Aaron gathered the people to leave for Exodus, so they're getting ready to go, their journey would have begun in the east of Goshen, namely Ramesses, which is, you're looking at a compass. Ramesses would be on the east side of Goshen, if Goshen were the center of the compass, and ended in the west of Goshen, namely Succoth. From Succoth onward, the Israelites were truly fleeing the territory where they formerly lived. So, Exodus 12:31 through 39. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested." This is following the last plague. "Take your flocks and herds as you have said and go. And also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, "we will all die." So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold for clothing. The Lord has made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people. Sorry, this should be capitalized. We're talking about God. My bad. Lord has made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot by this time, besides women and children. So you're looking at over 1 million people. 1.1, 1.2 million people probably. Many other people went up with them, as well as large droves of livestock and flocks and herds. With the dough they had brought from Egypt, they baked cakes and unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. Catch that? Dough was without yeast. It was unleavened because they did not have time to prepare food for themselves during Exodus. Did you catch that? Ruins below in photo. So these are some of the ruins that are still there around in the area. Same thing with this. Obviously, like anywhere else, everything's been plundered, robbed, and plundered. See all the foundations here. Remains of a mud brick building. I don't see any straw in those bricks. These are the parts of the homes or basements. That looks like a tank. That could have been a oven here, perhaps, or a root cellar. Maybe an oven with a chimney here. In the scriptures, the remains of Joseph are not mentioned until the Israelites have all gathered at Succoth, their last stop before the entire people were about to embark on their journey out of the country. All right, let's go see what Succoth is. Oh, that's it. Yep, that's it. So, by Ramesses, bam, and Succoth. Right? Okay. That just might make sense. Just look, what do we got here? The Red Sea. The Red Sea right there. Yo. Okay. So about to leave. So they all had their pit stop at Succoth. They rest stop. In Exodus 13:19 through 20, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. Let's look out where Etham is. So, journey here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Crazy. Just okay. So, in fact, let's do blue. Yeah. So let's see where Ethan is in relation to everywhere else. Whoa, what do we got here? Where are we? See that this Rosetta? That was at the top of the Nile. Why would they be up there? Doesn't make any sense. Hmm. Here? So they were here. Oh, this one green. They were here. And they moved to here. Oh, yes. Hmm. I'm gonna have to look into it. Doesn't make any sense here. Alright, get back to you on the next video cast with that. Okay. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. Matter of fact, you know what? I know. Look something up here. Give me a second. Bear with me. Um, follow along. So, I don't want. So, follow along here. Alright. Yeah, they stopped at Edom, right? After they left from the Bible, obviously. So, its exact physical location remains uncertain. Cultivated land ends. Located where cultivated land ends, obviously. The desert wilderness begins, obviously. From Etham, where Israelites were told by God to turn back and camp near Pi Migdal before the sea crossing. So scholars link the Hebrew name Etham to the ancient Egyptian word Hedom, meaning a fortress or border wall. Location clues. It likely sat at the eastern ends of the Wadi Tumalat, or near the northern end of the Bitter Lakes, Suez region, Suez Canal region, guarding Egypt's eastern frontier. Hmm. Let's see. There is Wadi Tumalat. Go to Bible Atlas. Hey, what's going on? I came in with this thing. There we go. These people saying over the sea. Right here. Sakaf, Ethan, Sakaf, question mark, Ethan. Should be a question mark, really. Definitely Great Bitter Lake right here. The name used to be explained as the Coptic Adium, water of the sea. Which would agree with the Hebrew numbers 33:8, where the wilderness of Etham is noticed instead of that of Shur, east of the Red Sea at Etham. Exodus 13:8. The Hebrews camped in the edge or at the end of the desert west of the sea. They were able to cross. All right, we're going to come back to this when we start reading into the scriptures. This looks interesting. Okay. Right now, we're just doing the summary. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, on the edge of the desert, by day the Lord went ahead of them. Neither the pillar of cloud nor the pillar of fire left its place in front of the people. Here below is plundered Egyptian type sarcophagus. You can see that here. At Tel El Mashkuda Sakoth. So that's a Sakoth, by the way. Why are we looking at this? Because, we want to just have a glimpse into maybe where Joseph was buried, something like that. He would have been buried in a sarcophagus like this. Surrounded by modern day, right now, it's surrounded by modern day garbage from a local village. This isn't where he was. I'm just saying, this is what they look like. This is the real one from back in the day. But now the whole place is a dump. Like I said, there's tons of Muslims everywhere. We talked about the last episode. The closing words of the book of Genesis have Joseph demanding that his remains be taken to the promised land whenever the Israelites were able to return. The Bible notes that he was embalmed in the Egyptian fashion and placed in a coffin in Egypt, something that would have been available to him due to his former status under the pharaoh, and perhaps as son-in-law of the prominent Egyptian priest. If you want, you can read Genesis 41:50. But that's a close-up of that same sarcophagus. So, yeah, and this right here, that's what would have been in it. That's kind of like what we do nowadays is here in the United States. Kind of the same thing, huh? Obviously bigger though. There we go. Top view. Get all that crap. Fire my English. See the Capri Sun? Just so much trash. People are disgusting. They ruined everything that's sacred. But yeah, look at, see that? This is the original, an original of someone's sarcophagus. Oh yeah, here you go. Part of it. So some parts of this reconstruction are based on excavations and magnetic. So they used a lot of magnetism, magnetic tools and everything like that. Just want to get back to Pyramus, since there was a lot of focus on it. So it was a new city built as a new capital in the Delta region of the Nile, the ancient city of Egypt. So this would have been the right here would have been the pharaoh's residence, the royal residence, and this is what they would have built off of the Nile right here coming in, and then he had his own little lake here built, and that's where the royal ships would come in, his own limousine, if you will, coming in for the family and all that stuff to get him, and his navy was in here too, and everything. They could quickly leave if they had to. It was a heavily fortified military, was like no other in the whole region. So again, what we already covered, it was located in the site of the modern town of Cantor, east of Delta. Uh, it was the equivalent of Thebes. Um, and it was named after the sun god Ra. Uh, see, these were it just became a massive military compound. The whole area became massive uh, industrial military complex. It wasn't originally. It was like a summer house, but it originally, and then it became an industrial military complex. It was 6 square miles. It had 300,000 people, not us Israelites, theirs. They had factories, they had training grounds in the area, 450 horses, stables. And then eventually it became abandoned. They moved it centuries later, where a city was built, another city. Yeah. Yep. The end. Okay. So that's going to be it for today's session. Session episode 3. Okay. Let us say, close out prayer. Most dearest, highest, and most caring, Almighty Father, we are gathered here and we think about this time together and want to thank you for this moment that brings all of us to each other so that we can all look at your word to study, to learn, to understand, and to grow by your wisdom, laws, directives, and commandments. We pray that you will open our hearts and minds to your truth and your ways. And if there's anything that was spoken or understood in error, we pray that you use your will to make necessary correction in our minds and in our hearts. Father, please blanket us in your loving kindness and patience so as to bring us closer together and so as to be able to walk with a better understanding of your ways in all through the trials that we will encounter and that are placed upon our families. Father, please also remember to cleanse our path to you so undesired spirits and beings will not affect or defile us. Father, help us to find the correct areas to dedicate our love to you, your will, and your ways. Father, we ask that you set the boundary for the territories of the high places you have claimed and have given to us in our covenant with you for the remnant, and to help us purge and cleanse the wickedness and evil from the promised from you to us as the remnant of your covenant. Father, we gather here because we believe only in you and your will, and we have faith in you, you alone. Praise Jesus Christ, Messiah. Amen. Everybody, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed today's video cast. And if you have any comments or questions, please drop them in one of the comment boxes or post something or send me a message somehow. There are plenty of ways to reach me. And have a blessed week. Thank you.